Minecraft is one of the most impressive and influential games of our time, hands down. It has allowed millions of players to experience and create almost anything imaginable. With a bit of time and creativity, pretty much anything is possible in Minecraft. As an aspiring game developer myself, it's been a huge goal of mine to not just play or mod Minecraft, but to make my very own version of the game and to put some kind of interesting spin on it. But coming up with an original twist on Minecraft isn't easy, because as we all know, there's already tons of impressive spin-offs out there. For instance, there's Minecraft but with accurate physics. There's Minecraft but with Lego blocks. There's Minecraft but with no blocks. There are Minecraft horror games. There's a Minecraft RPG in development. There's a one-dimensional Minecraft. There's a two-dimensional Minecraft. There's even a four-dimensional Minecraft game that's super strange and cool and looks like it will become a full-fledged game. So if I want to make my own Minecraft-inspired game, I'm gonna have to come up with some new way to distinguish it from all these other amazing projects. At first, my impulse was to try to go bigger and bolder by adding to or modifying the mechanics of the existing game. But no matter how I looked at it, making something anywhere near the size and scope of Minecraft as a single developer wasn't really possible. It's just too big. I knew I'd have to change tactics, but I tried and I couldn't come up with anything, so I set it aside for a while. Then one day I was watching a random video about asteroids and it hit me all of a sudden. What if instead of trying to go bigger and bigger with the game, we go smaller? Like way smaller. What if we take the massive, sprawling, giant, epic game that is Minecraft and shrink it down to something as little as possible? That's it. Watch out, Polly Pocket, because we've got our idea. We're gonna make Minecraft, but teeny freaking tiny. Okay, cool. But what does tiny actually mean? Well, the first and most obvious thing we can do to shrink the game down is drastically reduce the size of the in-game map. In Minecraft, when you generate a new world, it's a whopping 60 million square meters. That's equivalent to 7 times the size of our planet, which is anything but tiny. But what we're gonna do is make our whole game exist on a sphere that's just 27 meters across. This comes out to a surface area that's about 26,000 times smaller than the original game, which is perfect. Now that we have that sorted out, we gotta get some player movement up and running. We'll start with using this tiny tic tac for our player. There we go. Now, because we're using a curved sphere for the ground, we can't just use normal gravity. What we need to do is alter the gravity of the scene so that it always points to the center of our planet. Otherwise, the player will just fall straight down into the great nothingness of space. So let's go ahead and make a couple of adjustments to the physics. Okay, that's working a bit better. Now we can safely walk all the way around our planet without falling off. Next, we'll attach a camera to the player from behind so that it always follows them and we can see where we're going. Getting the camera height and distance just right turned out to be a little tricky because we want the player to be able to see enough around them without being too far away. Excellent. I think this is starting to feel like you're actually walking around a tiny little planet. Next, we'll make a more believable player model and replace our tic tac with it. Now, I'm not a pro at 3D modeling or anything, so I decided to use voxel art for the game. The handy thing about voxel art is that it's a lot like making pixel art. This makes it a little bit less intimidating in my opinion. There, that's pretty good. Let's see how Steve looks on our little planet. Not bad, he's just a bit stiff. Let's create a simple walking animation to make him more dynamic. Ha, he's still looking a bit awkward. Let's go ahead and try some more complex animations that I found for free online. The geometry is still doing some weird things that I might fix later, but overall, I'm liking this animation more than the traditional robotic Minecraft walk. Now we can start modeling items and objects to put in the game like some vegetation and a pickaxe. As we do that, I'm thinking it might be a good time to figure out what the gameplay will look like. Since I first heard about Minecraft and started seeing gameplay way back in the early days, I've always thought the most exciting part of the game is the survival aspect. I really like the idea of spawning in this randomly generated world with no tools and no direction and only the clothes on your back. Then you quickly realize that if you're gonna make it through the night, you better figure out how to make some weapons and shelter. It's this experience that I really want to focus on and condense down. So for our game, we're gonna make surviving in an unfamiliar environment where you have to identify all the threats and how to handle them the central game loop. Speaking of threats, let's make a creeper that we can use as an enemy for the game. Nice, that looks about right. Now let's plop it onto our planet and use Unity's NavMesh AI to make it follow Steve around. And let's give Steve an attack animation he can use to defend himself. Nice. But of course, if the creeper gets too close to Steve for too long, it will explode. I also went ahead and made a faster, stronger version of the creeper to use later. And you may have noticed that the skybox has changed. Now it looks like our little planet is floating around in the depths of outer space. Okay, let's flesh out the game loop some more. So we start out on this tiny little planet with nothing but a campfire, and we have to keep the fire lit. If we don't, monsters will come out and attack us. But in order to keep the fire lit, we have to venture out into the planet to collect firewood. And we have to find other necessities like food, water, and resources to craft things with. Okay, that's cool and makes sense, but I started thinking we needed some type of larger end goal for the game, some bigger threat to our existence overall. So I came up with the idea that there will be a giant comet heading towards our tiny planet that you have to destroy before it makes impact. And the only way to destroy the comet is to collect enough resources so you can craft a giant laser to blow it up. Cool, I think I'm liking that. Next, we need to come up with a way to disperse all the resources and vegetation around our planet. What I ended up doing was randomly placing a bunch of possible spawn points all over the map. Then I assigned each resource a spawn probability. For example, trees and grass will have a much higher spawn probability than mushrooms or diamond ore. Now, every time the game is started, the location and amounts of each resource on the planet will be different, so you'll never get the same map twice. We'll also make it so that the resources will eventually respawn after they're harvested. We'll use a similar spawn point system to spawn normal creeps at random locations around the planet every once in a while. Cool, it's all coming together. But as I started doing a bit of testing, it became clear that the player needs more reason to venture away from the campsite. So I decided to make it so the water source will always spawn pretty much on the opposite side of the planet. This will make it so the player has to venture out at least every once in a while to restore their thirst points. Now let's make the planet even more dynamic by giving it a day-night cycle. We'll do this by putting a directional light in the scene that slowly circles the planet. I also want to give our tiny world some weather, so we'll make a couple fog banks that randomly drift around. If the player touches them, they'll take a point of cold damage. And if the fog banks happen to run into your campfire, they'll knock some remaining time off of it. Then there's a chance that it will start raining every once in a while, which will make the campfire run out more quickly. And when the campfire goes out, that's when the really scary baddies come out. Now, with a clear idea of what hazards exist on the planet, we can come up with items that the player can craft to help them survive. Here's what I'm thinking. The player can craft a pickaxe and eventually a diamond pickaxe to increase their attack power and speed up resource collection. They can craft a torch to help them see better in the dark areas of the planet. They can craft a tent that allows them to sleep for a bit and recover health. But they'll lose precious time before the comet hits. They can craft a warm hat that will help prevent them from taking cold damage from the fog banks. They can craft a lunchbox that slows down their hunger meter. They can make a bucket that slows down their thirst meter. And of course, there's that laser that the player has to craft to beat the game. Cool. Now the player has some options for what they can craft with some interesting trade-offs. Next, let's make a very simple UI to show all the items the player has collected. We also got to display the amount of health, hunger, and thirst points the player has left. And we need another meter to show how much time is remaining before the comet obliterates us. Okay, that's pretty much everything for a small prototype. But before we try it out, we gotta come up with a suitable name. I'm thinking we'll call the game Speck Miner, because the goal is to survive on this tiny speck of a planet floating in outer space. Now let's fire it up and see how it's all working. Okay, so first things first, we gotta make a crafting table. So we'll just chop down a bit of wood and throw a log on the fire. Now we can start building stuff. Okay, let's fill our water. And do some more choppy. Here comes our first creeper sneaking up. Alright, let's craft. Ah, the dang fog. Crap, the fire's out. Alright, here we go then. Dang, it spawned 3 of them. I'm trying to get a log back on the fire, so they'll stop spawning. And of course, it has to start raining. But I'm gonna get them right here. And I died. Okay, so this time around, I forgot to eat food. Darn it. On this attempt, I ran out of time. Okay, this time I got the whole camp built and I just need to build the laser. Excellent. So where to go from here? I'm really liking this little game so far. I started out this project with the intention of just making a tiny Minecraft spin-off, but the more I've worked on it, the more potential I see in it to become its own full-fledged game. In fact, I was so excited that I went back and overhauled the graphics and art to give the game a more original visual style. Then I started thinking of all the ways I could expand on this format. I began coming up with all kinds of other tiny procedurally generated planets the player could explore, survive, and complete missions on. Like, what if there's a planet that rains acid so you have to seek shelter every time it starts? Or what if there are ice planets and you're constantly trying to stay warm? Or a volcanic planet that erupts lava geysers you have to dodge? The possibilities really are endless. But here's where I have to be honest. I know I have the same problem that almost all other game developers have, which is I see the potential in every idea that pops into my head, no matter how silly or uninspired. So I'm gonna ask you, dear viewers, for a favor. If a full-fledged version of Spec Miner seems like a game you'd like to play, give it a wishlist on Steam. There's a link in the description to a page I've made for it. If you like the idea of a compact action survival game where you explore tiny procedurally generated planets and complete missions on them to upgrade your ship and explore other tiny alien planets, help get Spec Miner off the ground. And if you have some awesome ideas of your own for how it could be expanded into a larger game, I'd love to hear them in the comments or on Discord. But yeah, cool. That's my little elevator pitch. Thanks as always for watching, and I can't wait to hear from everyone. See you all next time.